Gielinor is home to many fascinating societies, each one possessing its own system molded by the area's culture and history. Some of these organizations are similar to each other, while others differ sharply, but they all have one thing in common: someone at the top steering the state's fate. Among them are larger-than-life characters, household names, and unsettlingly little-known individuals, and today you will learn about all of them as we explore the current rulers of Gielinor. Please note before we begin that during some quests, the player influences the leadership of some states. This video will only take into account the rulers in place as of the very beginning of a player's adventures, meaning it's spoiler-free. And without further delay, let's begin in no particular order. Actually, I lied. It's in alphabetical order. We begin with the primate realm of Ape Atoll in the Southern Sea, led by the only monkey on our list, King Awuwuji, from his throne located southeast of the capital, Marim. He is a worshipper of the patron goddess of monkeys, Marimbo. And that's about it. Sorry, we know disappointingly little about this cute little guy. Next, we travel to our first mainland realm, the Kingdom of Asgarnia. This old human nation has its capital in Falador, where its head of state, King Valence, resides. Except maybe not. In fact, his current whereabouts are unknown and subject to conflicting claims. Some say the White Knights launched a soft coup and secretly seized power, while other accounts suggest they are ruling in his stead because he has grown old and ill. In any case, his past is almost as blurry as his current condition. Therefore, let's turn our attention to the one who actually holds the reins in the kingdom. Ceramic Vase, regent of the realm and leader of the White Knights. Ceramic Vase seems on the surface like a benevolent and competent ruler, but his past actions as regent reveal a darker, dictatorial side of him. 16 years ago, in the year 163 of the Fifth Age, not even a year into his regency, he unilaterally decreed that the Kinshra, which you may know as the Black Knights, were banned as a political entity in Asgarnia, which would spark much turmoil and a split in society. Prior to this decree, the Black Knights and White Knights had more or less equal political power in Asgarnia. Whatever one thinks of the ostracized Zamarakian organization, it's difficult to see Ceramic Vase's decision as anything other than a self-interested and corrupt abuse of power. Allegedly. Please don't sue me, White Knight Order. Oh, and Ceramic Vase recently adopted a corgi called Cerberus. No, not Cerberus, Cerberus. The kingdom has one known lower ruler serving under the king's banner. The northernmost part of Asgarnia, the Principality of Berthorpe, is under the leadership of Crown Prince Anlaf, the king's son and heir apparent. His father gave him the position as a way for him to get some leadership experience, preparing him for his future responsibilities as king. The prince appears to have done a good job so far, having strengthened the Berthorpe Imperial Guard and improved the palace to secure the realm against its hostile troll neighbors to the north. He has withdrawn from public life in recent years, with rumors claiming this is due to concerns over his safety following the increased political instability in the kingdom, as he would be a prime target for any enemy of the establishment. We now travel to the venerable Fremennik Province, which is led by... well, it's complicated. You see, the various tribes and clans of this area are big fans of hating each other. As a result, there is not a single centralized power structure in the Fremennik Province, and that's probably for the best. Instead, here's a breakdown of the leadership of all the disparate microstates it's composed of. Over in Relica, we have Brunt the Chieftain, head of the Fremennik tribe. We know he has a son, Armad Bruntson, and an unnamed wife. Besides that, he seems to embody the traditional Fremennik stereotype to a T. He doesn't get along with the Mountain Tribe and the Moon Clan, but loves a good drink. Relica also has a council composed of 12 members including the chieftain, but it is unclear what powers are relegated to the council. The only ones we know of so far are deciding to accept outsiders into the clan and banishing its members, with a majority of 7 members in both cases. Then we have the Mountain Camp, led by Hamal the Chieftain, head of the Mountain Tribe. He has a daughter named Aslave, who has tragically been missing for over a decade. Despite not getting along with the Fremennik in Relica, Hamal seems to hold similar views and values to them, if perhaps leaning more towards the traditional lifestyle of their shared nomadic ancestors. If one sails over to the Fremennik Isles, they will find the petty kingdoms of Yatiso and Natisnot, which find themselves at odds with each other at every turn, as the biggest-brained individuals might derive from their names. The eastern one, Yatiso, is ruled by King Gyuki Sorvat IV. One might call him an undistinguished leader if they wanted to spare his feelings, or if they wanted to be honest, a disturbingly appalling ruler so obviously unfit for the throne he would be easily outmatched by a goblin in an election. Since his ascension to the throne after the death of his father, King Gyuki Sorvat III, he has made a habit of crippling his nation's economy and making the lives of his subjects miserable by taxing them to oblivion in order to fund pointless wars against ice trolls to the north, all the while simultaneously clashing with Natisnot, perhaps the only possible ally Yatiso could ever hope to have against the real northern threat. I cannot possibly imagine why many of its citizens have escaped the island after it was governed by this ill-tempered ignorant. Travel but a very short way west and you'll find yourself in Natisnot, where his cousin King Manis Burogar reigns. By all accounts, his character used to be akin to that of his cousin, until a most unfortunate event that left its mark on both his psyche and his kingdom. Not that long ago, ice trolls launched a raid against Natisnot. The island's honor guard proved unready for such an attack, and the trolls managed to breach and partially burn the city, mercilessly slaughtering many of its inhabitants in the process. Among the victims of this tragedy were two of Manis's closest loved ones, his wife and son. At least the king has made the best out of an unimaginably painful situation by becoming a wiser, better version of himself. According to his subjects, he is now a benevolent, kind ruler who has earned their support and respect. The king now believed the quarreling between Yatiso and Natisnot to be a pointless waste of resources that could be crucial in overcoming the ice troll threat. Here's hoping his cousin can reach a similar epiphany without suffering a similar trauma. Traveling over the waves some more leads us to Lunar Isle, where the Moon Clan resides. This tribe, the oldest human group to ever use magic, is overseen by its spiritual head, the powerful Oneromancer. Her history is an enigma, but you'll be lucky to find a Moon Clan member who will speak ill of her, and she comes across as a wise and benevolent ruler. There is little doubt that Lunar Isle is an almost uniquely well-managed and united part of the Fremennik Province, despite being in many ways its black sheep, thanks to the Moon Clan's very pro-magical views, a singularly non-conforming stance among the island nations of the Lunar Sea. At the northwest of that very sea, we have the kingdom of Misthalin on the island of the same name. This tiny nation is currently going through a bit of a leadership crisis. Let me explain. Currently, King Vargas sits on its throne. He seems to have had a long rule, as it was his decision to excavate the extensive underground network of the island to make up for the island's small size. A small bridge connects it with the island of Etseteria to the east, with which King Vargas has been in a dispute for some time. Perhaps because of the two nations' small populations and closeness to one another, neither side seems inclined to resolve this dispute through military means. Nothing out of the ordinary so far. So why is Misthalin going through a leadership crisis, you may ask? Well, you may have noticed King Vargas has a little quirk about him. Not so long ago, he was turned into a Yeti, and his immense size now makes him unfit to rule. Apparently. Personally, I don't know why that's such a big deal, but nevertheless the king wishes to abdicate, but currently sees neither of his children as a suitable monarch and cannot find a good regent for the realm. If any of you guys are ambitious enough, maybe make your way there. Who knows, with some luck, maybe you can adventure your way to nobility. Misthalinia's next-door neighbor, the previously mentioned nation of Etseteria, is ruled by Queen Sigrid. She has worked her way to the title by marrying into royalty, as she herself was born outside of it. Some may see this as an impressive achievement, but there is some evidence that she never intended to become queen in the first place. In fact, she believes her position to be rather boring, although perhaps that is to be expected, considering how small and unremarkable Etceteria is. Despite the ongoing dispute between her and King Vargas, she is seemingly open to dialogue with her Western counterpart, although the extent of her warmness to the idea is debatable. And finally, we have an easily overlooked area. Keldagrim, technically the capital of the Dwarven realm, but geographically within the Fremennik Province's borders. Keldagrim is an immense and ancient underground city, built on both sides of the river Kelda over thousands of years by dwarves, and is today the race's most iconic settlement. Originally a monarchy, the city has been ruled by the Consortium, a ruling entity composed of the city's 8 biggest companies. On an unrelated note, this government gathers in the Keldagrim Palace, which is both a marvel of Dwarven architecture and without a doubt one of Gielinor's oldest standing structures, its construction dating back many thousands of years ago in the Third Age. Here's a list of the current companies composing the consortium. Every single one of them is a mining company. The dwarves have a thing for mining. Their political power and influence in Keldagrim are directly correlated with the commercial success of the companies, and at present the Red Axe Company is agreed by all to hold the most sway over the city. Leaving the mainland and heading west, we wash up on the shore of Zaya, composed of 2 sprawling realms. The first one is the Kingdom of Great Kourend. Despite its name, it is a republic, and has one of the most complex governments on Gielinor. Its structure is similar to a federal system. At the top is the Kourend Council, composed of 4 elected councillors. Every year, a head councillor is rotated among the members, and once each one has been head councillor once, there is an election to decide the new council. Each of Kourend's 5 cities acts more or less like an independent entity. The laws adopted by the council supersedes those of the cities, but outside of the rules decided on by the council, each house may rule its own domain the way it sees fit. Let us begin at the top with the council. Its current sitting members are Sophia Hughes, Kubek Onkar, Liam Orson, and head councillor David Andrews. There are many among this group who have been claimed to have some unsavory allegiances, but one should pay no heed to such unsubstantiated rumors. As for the heads of the 5 houses, we start with Lord Trobin Archaeus, by far the oldest of the list. It is said Trobin was taught the secrets of human immortality by the Tazakal, a powerful ancient race. Going against their will, he shared it with the rest of the citizens of Archaeus. Those mysterious floating figures you see around there, they once had human bodies, but were granted new ones more suited for immortality. Lord Trobin sits on arguably the greatest source of knowledge in Gielinor, has personally witnessed some of Kourend's most legendary moments, and has been ruling his people for almost 1,000 years. While there is no guarantee of this, one may conclude he is likely a wise ruler, held in high regards by those who have been his subjects for hundreds of years at this point. The fertile lands of Hositius are led by Lord Kandur Hosidius. He has 2 sons, Artur and Pander Hosidius, born to his wife Elena, who also happens to be the sister of Shazian's leader, Lord Shiro Shazian, making him his brother-in-law. Kandur appears to be a well-liked figure in Kourend. Speaking of Lord Shiro Shazian, he is arguably head of the house with the most power in Kourend, as the Shazian army employs most Shazian citizens and is the main military and law enforcement body of the kingdom. Shiro inherited his position 4 years ago when his father died. Since then, he has made it a focus to continue Shazian's ongoing fight with the Lizardmen from the Kebos lowlands. He is as much a ruler as he is a commander, and is never found far from his troops. Port Piscarilius is ruled by Lady Shauna Piscarilius, who looks like an unremarkable leader. That is, if you don't know her secrets. Shauna's father was by all accounts an extremely corrupt man who sought to enrich himself at the expense of his citizens at every turn. His daughter, on the other hand, is everything but. Secretly, she is the Queen of Thieves, a legendary leader of a gang calling itself the Saviors of Kourend. This group has made it its mission to root out corruption and re-establish the rule of law in the kingdom. After trying and failing to cleanse the city of the deep-rooted corruption her father had allowed to fester, she asked for assistance from the Kourend Council, but it is said they refused to help, being themselves accused of corruption. She then resolved to solve the problem herself by creating the gang. While her gang's methods are questionable, having been labeled as a criminal organization in Kourend, there is no doubt Shauna cares deeply about her people and is willing to go to great lengths to make their lives safer and fairer. Great Kourend's last and only dwarven city is led by Lady Volcana Lovacane. She is struggling with a well-known alcohol problem, and her poor assistant Jorah spends most of his days bringing her drinks, even during her official duties. All in all, not the kind of dwarf you want governing your city. Let us now scrutinize the largest mainland nation, Kandarin. In theory, Kandarin is divided among two monarchs. After the death of its previous ruler, King Althas Ardignus, the kingdom was split between his two sons according to his will, giving the eastern part to King Lathas and the west to King Tyrus. While the precise division of the realm is quite evident in the capital Ardoin, it's otherwise unknown where the division line is drawn. In practice, King Tyrus long ago embarked on an expedition to the west, aiming to annex new territory, and his whereabouts are currently unknown, as none of his scouts have been seen in a while in the only known line of communication with his forces, the treacherous underground pass. Therefore, his half of the realm is probably run either by local officials or by West Ardoin's city warder, Bravek. Bravek has been going through rough times lately. He is terrified of the plague currently hitting West Ardoin. Because of it, he constantly defers to the mourners when it comes to decision-making, as he believes them to be more qualified than him to save the city. This is despite the mourners being subordinate to his authority. He has now taken to drinking to ease the stress of the situation and delegated most of his duties to the mourners. King Tyrus, who appointed Bravek when he adventured west, is a little-known figure. There is some evidence that he was more interested in adventures and conquests than actually managing his realms, although those are speculations on my part. Port Tyrus, on the continent's western coast, is named after him and was founded by his expeditionary force as an outpost beyond the Galarpos Mountains. Now the main course of this Kandarin dinner, King Lathas, Tyrus's older brother, and the ruler of East Kandarin. Lathas was a vain monarch who, by his own admittance, saw his father's realm as his birthright. He was furious when his father agreed to give away Camelot to the Knights of the Round Table, and became ever more bitter after King Althas's decision to split the kingdom in his will. Whether due to ambition or entitlement, Lathas strongly desires control over his brother's half of Kandarin. So much so, I bet he would be willing to employ some extreme methods to unseat King Tyrus, if the opportunity presented itself. Despite these less than desirable character traits for a ruler, there is little reason to believe King Lathas has done a poor job managing Kandarin, as under his rule, despite facing important challenges and looming crises, the kingdom has kept its status as one of the richest and most powerful realms on Gielinor. Some areas of Kandarin are independent, either officially or in practice, and have known leaders. For example, the castle of Camelot used to belong to Lord St. Clair, who offered it to Arthur and his knights when they came to Gielinor with the king's blessing. Both saw great potential to act for humanity's best interests in Arthur, who is now known as King Arthur, although his domain is limited to a castle and its courtyard. Arthur is a most fascinating individual. He and his Knights of the Round Table are the only known humans on Gielinor to have originated from other worlds. According to them, they hail from another dimension and come from one of its realms called Britain, although such a nation is almost certainly inexistent in my opinion. Arthur claims he and his men are taking up residence in Gielinor until such a time when Britain is threatened and they must return to save it. The most remote populated part of Kandarin is the Piscatoris fishing colony, which has little contact with the rest of the kingdom due to its location north of the vast and uninhabited Piscatoris Peninsula. The colony exists solely to profit from the monkfish trade and has a director that presumably leads it on behalf and under the authority of the crown. Herman Karanos is the current colony director. He has always been passionate about fishing, and apart from that, we don't really know anything about him. And that's unfortunate, because there is one thing about Herman that I find particularly curious and mysterious. In Herman's desk lies a book. The title of this book? Dionysius, a legend in his own lifetime. You may or may not know this, but Dionysius is the real name of the wise old man. The book is an incomplete biography of its titular adventurer. How Herman has it in its possession, why he is interested in Dionysius, and what happened to the missing pages are all weirdly intriguing questions. The now almost empty village of Witch Haven also has its own mayor, the rather eccentric Eustace Hobb. But Witch Haven is such an insignificant settlement, its mayor is barely worth noticing. Only getting involved in some kind of plot to help monstrous creatures mind control humanity could possibly make this guy interesting, and that's a bit of a stretch. Within Kandarin also exists remnants of the once mighty Gnomish Empire, two independent pockets within the kingdom's borders. The southernmost one is the Tree Gnome Village, ruled by King Bolrin. Despite holding the title of king, he was elected by the village gnomes after his predecessor and brother, former King Bolri, abdicated. The abdication was imposed by the villagers after Bolri drew their ire due to accusations of being an accomplice of Glufri the Untrusted, a once celebrated gnomish hero who later betrayed his kinsmen, forever tarnishing his legacy. I promise you I will do a video on the gnomes and cover this very story one day, because trust me, it is all kinds of fascinating. But anyway, yes, King Bolrin. All evidence points to his fellow gnomes making a commendable decision in picking him as their leader. He appears to be a wise king who cares deeply for his people's safety. The main challenge he faces is the gnomes' unending conflict against the army of General Khazard, another interesting story that sadly we can't go over today. To the north, on the other side of Ardoin, lies the other gnomish realm, called something like Takir Priv in gnomish, but known to humans as the Tree Gnome Stronghold. Many consider it the capital of the Gnomish Empire, although it is not clear if Gielinor's gnomes even consider themselves part of a united empire anymore. At its head is King Narnod Sharin, a gnomish monarch with a warm attitude towards humans. While there are few scraps of information about him, his realm has obviously flourished under his rule. The stronghold is one of the biggest cities in Gielinor and is clearly doing well for itself. On the other hand, the king has recently been quite anxious about the Grand Tree, slowly dying to an unknown ailment. For the gnome's sake, let's hope this issue can be sorted before it's too late. The island of Karamja is rather inhospitable, to put it mildly, and filled with dangers often lurking just out of sight. It's no great surprise, then, that the island has yet to be united by any one power. Instead, it is dotted with various small tribes and villages with little interest in expanding beyond the relative safety of their current borders. To the very north of the island, west of its famous volcano, is the town of Brimhaven. Some may tell you in passing that it is led by Scarface Pete, the mysterious owner of the village's largest building. But in truth, Brimhaven isn't so much an organized community as much as it is a loose collection of pirates and gangs, with laws as loose as their allegiances. Scarface Pete just happens to arguably hold the most power, for now. Venture south of Brimhaven, and soon enough you will reach the small tribal village of Taibu Wanai. Its leader Tim Fraku is generally cold and cautious towards outsiders, unless they are willing to show their usefulness to the villagers and prove to be no threat to them, after which a warmer reception can be expected. It's hard to tell how good a leader Tim Fraku is. However, he does have the rather unenviable task of being in charge of a village that can never expect to be fully safe on account of the dangerous jungle surrounding the area. Preventing it from growing too deep into the settlement is a daily struggle for its tribesmen. Yet the village seems to be doing relatively well considering these circumstances. While not a definitive proof, perhaps this is indication of competent management at least. At the very southern tip of the island, hidden deep within one of Gielinor's most inhospitable corners, lives one of the most secretive society to currently exist, the Rantuki tribe. This elusive nomadic group is led by Kangai Mao, or something, who, just like the tribe as a whole, is more or less a complete mystery. In fact, there is so little information to go on, I believe even speculating is a waste of our time. The tribe's only relatively near settlement is Shiloh village. Unfortunately, its leadership is unknown to us at this time. There is one last Karamjan society that deserves a quick look. The Tsar, who dwell in their great city of Moral Wreck, deep within the Karamja volcano. This unique species is unlike any other in so many ways, most of them almost completely undocumented. This includes their culture, origin, biology, and unfortunately for us, leadership structure. I thought Moral Wreck deserved a mention as a clearly well-functioning city, with someone somewhere probably making decisions. Perhaps one day we will find out more about these living volcanic creatures. Getting away from a treacherous, mostly uninhabited island, we instead travel to the treacherous, mostly uninhabited Kharidian Desert, also too untamable for a centralized authority to control its entirety. However, it is host to many interesting settlements, the most well-known of which is without a doubt the Emirate of Al-Kharid at its northern tip. The emirate is ruled by the emir, a faceless, nameless monarch who no longer leaves his private chambers, on account of his old age and the emotional pain brought about by his son's kidnapping a short while ago. Only his loyal Chancellor Hassan is allowed to see him in person. The emir seems to care about Al-Kharid and its citizens. He wishes only for his missing son Prince Ali to take his place and be an adequate ruler once the time comes, which hints at the emir being a benevolent monarch. A short way south into the desert proper, one may run into the desert mining camp, where only the most unwise would dare venture. Its population is split into two groups, merciless gods and hopeless slaves. The one in control of this glorified prison is Captain Siad. Weirdly enough, the only reliable information we have about the captain is his deep passion for sailing. Head west from the mining camp until you reach the coast, and you will find yourself in the Bedouin camp, a small, temporary settlement for the nomadic Bedouin tribe, famous for their ability to survive the harsh desert and grow exquisite pineapples. Its leader is a man who goes by Al-Shabim. His name is the extent of what we know about him, as the tribe does not seek contact with the outside world. At the southern edge of the desert, we have two magnificent, well-organized city-states standing side by side as beacons of civilization in an environment so hostile to life. The beautiful Sophanum and the elusive Menafos. Sophanum, sometimes called the City of the Dead, has at its head the High Priest of Icthlarin, acting as both ruler and religious head for the Sophanites. The previous High Priest, Clenter, died mere days ago. He was almost universally disliked by those under his rule, being described as a cruel and wrathful figure who would torture citizens for the smallest perceived slight. The bar is therefore quite low for his brand new successor. This new High Priest's name is currently unknown, but they are already clearly friendlier than Clenter, and at least appear to be taking their new duties seriously. Unfortunately, fate seems intent on giving him a trial by fire. In just the few days he has been leading Sophanum, the city has been beset by terrible woes, falling victim to a plague and a great migration of crop-eating giant locusts, sending this proud desert society to the edge of disaster. Hopefully the city and its new high priest can rise up to these sudden challenges and avoid catastrophe. The plague has caused Sophanum to be quarantined off from its only neighbor, Menafos, on the other side of the river Elid. Menafos marks a conspicuous gap in our current knowledge of Gielinor. It is ruled by Pharaoh Khemizis, who is an enigma, just as his city is, although there have been rumors claiming the pharaoh has been acting somewhat unlike himself for some time. Perhaps there is more to this whole situation. Well, obviously there is. Jagex, please finish exploring this part of the lore. Menafos has always been a great big eyesore on the map, and I think it's about time to change that. The desert also boasts a city where life would probably seem lovely, were it not for its infestation of gangs and thugs. Nested between tall hills and the river Elid sits Polnivnich, which is ruled by Ali the Mayor, if only on paper. In reality, the city streets have long been a battlefield between the Polnivnich bandits and the Menaphites, two warring factions vying for local supremacy. Both are stronger than the forces of Polnivnich's officially recognized government, and likely would have seized control already, if not for their feud with each other taking precedence. The last desert settlement on our list is the city of Narda, the only populated area on the eastern coast of the Kharidian Desert. Narda is technically ruled by Menafos, but has its own mayor, currently Awuza the Mayor. There is limited information about Awuza, but he is well liked by the people of Narda, although it is often claimed he has yet to fully grasp the bureaucracy that comes with the pharaoh's oversight. He has been mayor for some time, but is now facing an unexpected difficulty. The city's water supplies have recently begun vanishing mysteriously. Hopefully the mayor's mystery-solving abilities outclass his bureaucracy skills. Humanity's most powerful nation in First Mainland Realm, Misthalin, is ruled by King Rold III and his wife, Queen Ella Maria, from their capital of Varrock. King Rold is the son of his predecessor, King Rold II, and a descendant of Tarlo Remanis, one of the original elders of the tribe that founded Avaroka, Varrock's original name. Among his subjects, he is broadly seen as a respected leader who has done much to keep Misthalin prosperous and stable. He is said to have had a fairly sheltered upbringing and was taught to read by Reldo, the Varrock Palace librarian. Some notable accomplishments during his rule include the renovation of the Varrock Museum, which is now one of Gielinor's foremost places of learning, and often quite useful to me when doing research for these videos, so thank you, Rold. He was also the driving force behind the creation of the Grand Exchange, which turned his realm into a global hub for trade and finance, at the cost of becoming a magnet for stinky adventurers. As with all fallible mortals, however, he has drawn some criticisms at times, mainly focused on his perceived weakness in standing up to other authority figures within the kingdom, such as the Church of Saradomin and our next subject, his wife Queen Ella Maria. According to the wise old man, Ella Maria was born outside of royalty, spending her early life as a peasant, and at one point working in the Blue Moon Inn as a barmaid. It's unknown how she became involved with Rold III, but her past makes her a beloved, relatable hero of the peasantry. Except not really. Not at all, in fact. Despite living much of her life as a woman of the people, it seems her new nobility titles have gotten to her head along with her crown. She is now known to look down upon lower classes, which for her basically means everyone in the world, and to have a hot-headed, impatient temperament. Even King Rold himself is clearly afraid of her, becoming more docile and walking on eggshells when in her presence. Misthalin has one known vassal under its monarch, Duke Horatio, leader of Lumbridge. While his title suggests the existence of a Duchy of Lumbridge, there is no reference to a greater Lumbridge area beyond the small town of that name. Both Horatio's life and rule are a bit of a mystery, and while he doesn't seem hated by the local populace, there are reasons to doubt his leadership, such as goblins roaming his domain and his castle being staffed by some individuals of questionable competence and integrity. Within the territorial boundaries of Misthalin, although politically independent, is the great underground city of Dorgeshkarn, dwelling place of the Dorgeshun, more widely known to humans as the Cave Goblins or the Lost Tribe. Dorgeshkarn has been a republic for much of its history, after a civil war concluded with a ruling council. The city has been isolated for millennia, and our knowledge of its peaceful, technologically advanced inhabitants is sorely lacking. We do know its council is composed of 7 elected members, one of which acts as head councillor. This position is currently held by one of the oldest Dorgashun alive, Ortag, a seemingly cautious but wise leader. The other council members are unknown to us for now. Misthalin's eastern border is delineated by the River Salve, beyond which lies the realm of Morytania, a land with a history as dark as its putrid landscape. Its ruler is the wicked Lord Lowerniel Vergidiad Draken, a true-born vampire and without a doubt the most historically significant individual on our list of rulers. As an immortal being, he has been alive at least since Gielinor's Second Age and has affected the course of history in ways few individuals ever have. His life deserves a video of its own, and no doubt will get one at some point. But for now, here's an extremely abridged biography. Lord Draken is from Vampirium, homeworld of the vampires. Before Gielinor was even known to his kin, he was already a powerful ruler in his own right, having risen through Vampirium society until he was strong enough to subjugate all other vampiric houses. Vampirium was at some point visited by the god Zaros, who played a large role in shaping the culture and values of the vampires, and fundamentally changed their civilization into a more organized and centralized society. Along with many of his brethren, he was brought to Gielinor by Zaros during the Second Age to bolster his troops, as the Zarosian Empire was Gielinor's uncontested superpower at the time. When the Zarosian general Zamorak began organizing a conspiracy to overthrow Zaros, Lord Draken backed him up, swayed by promises of titles and land, as well as his own growing discontentment with the Empire. After the plot succeeded, Lowerniel Draken invaded Hallowvale, an ancient Saradominist kingdom. The invasion was a brutal, bloody affair, as he cared little for the life of his own troops, painting every death as a worthwhile sacrifice. Hallowvale was brought to its knees and became today's Kingdom of Morytania. As its ruler, Lord Draken has had a history of attempting to expand westwards into human territories, but is mostly known for his cruel, heartless treatment of humans, as well as anyone else who displeases him in any way. He banished his own brother, Count Draenor, from his realm, and most of the population consists of humans treated as blood dispensers and slaves, living in repugnant ghettos. If there's one thing this video should teach you, it's that as a human, you'd rather be born anywhere that isn't Morytania. Despite his enduring and absolutely deserved reputation as a tyrannical dictator, Lord Draken has not actually been seen in Gielinor for a long time, and it's believed he spends all his days in Vampirium. Other lesser rulers within Morytania include Lady Verzik Vitter, who governs the castle of Versinhaza, which was previously the residence of Hallowvale's queen. She is a powerful vampire famous for her love of extravagant and violent entertainment, hence much of her domain being composed of the theater of blood. She became the Lady of Versinhaza as a reward for her valuable contribution in Lord Draken's invasion of Hallowvale. For much of her life, she has been domesticating Nilochus, breeding them into ever bigger and more dangerous creatures. Now, there are two more regions of Morytania I want to discuss, and they are strange specimens. First is Port Phasmatis, a small town filled with ghosts unable to reach the afterlife. Its de facto leader is the Necrovarus, a ghost himself, and part of a very small club, characters who originate from the Eastern lands, also sometimes called the Wushanko Isles. When the Necrovarus arrived in Port Phasmatis, the area was once a bustling hub reduced to a shadow of its former self under the rule of Lord Draken. The inhabitants were desperate for any kind of protection against the unending blood tithing imposed by their conquerors, and when the Necrovarus, a powerful sorcerer, offered to erect a protective barrier around the town, he became a bastion of hope on a hill of despair. He ordered the excavation of an area just north of the town, where a pool of slime was discovered. He then had a temple built around it and equipped it with the Ectophontus, a magic fountain that started radiating a malicious energy. The malevolent influence engulfed the town, creating a zone the vampires and their minions could not enter. The mage had fulfilled his end of the bargain, but his true intentions were revealed. All of this had been a scheme by the Necrovirus to use the town, its inhabitants, and the magical pool of slime for his secretive evil plans. The barrier consumed the lives of everyone within, and while it did repel the vampires, it also kept the ghosts of the deceased trapped inside. The Necrovirus also took on a ghostly form as a means to attain immortality, although the curse's effects are far less severe for him. Since then, Port Phasmatis has been a town of restless ghosts, stuck in the unshakable grip of the scoundrel who exploited the town's anguish to trick its populace into eternal purgatory. Our last Morytanian area is the gloomy town of Bur-Darat. Don't let appearances trick you. The area is inhabited by many humans, but has kept it a secret and hidden their existence for a long time, seeking to escape the tithing of its residents by Draken's vampires. The leader of the village is Elisabetta, a woman whose goal is for her fellow citizens to slowly gain their strength, until the day they are fit to attempt the perilous trek through the Mortmire swamp to reach Paterdomus, the holy temple on the Salve, where they would at last be safe and free. Now for an often overlooked realm of Gielinor, the Troll Country. Often confused with the Wintertot or Reddit, the Troll Country actually sits between the Fremennik Province and the wilderness. While it's unknown how centralized this society is, by far their biggest city is the Troll Stronghold, a large underground fortress led by Cobb. I would love to tell you more about him, but such information is difficult to come by. There is one area of Troll Country we know is independent, the village of Wace, the mainland's northernmost settlement. Founded by a tribe of ice trolls driven out of their ancestral homes, Waste and its inhabitants have remained isolated since. Their current leader is Mother, full name Mother's Left One, but don't think too much about it, who was also leader of the tribe when it relocated some decades ago. Mother is distrustful of humans, but seems decently well-spoken and diplomatic, at least by troll standards, although she does have a nasty habit of berating and insulting her fellow trolls when they make her impatient or disappointed. West of the mighty Galarpos Mountains lie the forest-covered expanses of Tirannwn, land of the elves. Their long-standing isolationist tendencies and the immense geological obstacles separating them from the realms of man have turned them into legends among humanity, a large chunk of which do not believe they exist. Yet the learned scholars among us know otherwise. Tirannwn has its capital in Privdinis, this world's oldest city, having been inhabited through every single one of Gielinor's 5 ages, that is, until recently. The elves are currently going through a civil war and crisis. For their entire history, their leadership had been divided among 8 clans, each electing a member of the Council of Elders, the ruling authority where all clan elders sat as equals. Over 2 centuries ago, the Iorwerth clan betrayed their kin when Lord Iorwerth ordered a violent takeover of Privdinis while its armies were distracted, trying to expand their borders eastwards under King Baxtorian, sparking the Elven Civil War. After King Baxtorian and his supporters failed to retake the city, the surviving clan elders performed a desperate ritual to revert Privdinis to its original crystal seed, taking away Lord Iorwerth's greatest asset. Henceforth, the Iorwerth clan's base of operation has been a military camp just south of the city walls. There, Lord Iorwerth has been leading his side of the civil war. Through all these events, his ultimate goal has been the summoning of an entity called the Dark Lord, as he believes it to be Seren herself, the ancient goddess of the elves. On the other side of this conflict, the Elven Resistance, composed mostly of elves from the other 7 clans, is holed up in the hidden village of Letia. They have long ago elected Arianwin Kandarin as their leader. Arianwin is dedicated to the Resistance cause, and his skills in archery are nearly unmatched. Only a bumbling adventurer who's in way over their head could possibly solve this bloody conflict and return the Queen of Gielinor cities to its former crystalline glory. But there is a corner of Tirannwn so inhospitable and putrid, the elves don't ever scout or patrol the area. A tiny settlement has been calling this area home for decades. The village of Zolondra was founded by desperate and starving refugees from an expedition gone wrong. Fleeing from the elves, they crossed the swamp and camped southwest of it, only to be attacked by a monstrous sea creature, Zolra. Zolra killed many, but was ultimately appeased after one of the refugees offered her own son as a sacrifice. Since that day, there has been an understanding between the creature and the village, occasional sacrifices in exchange for peace. The village is led today by High Priestess Zulharsinka, the sister of the original sacrifice. As her title suggests, the rituals have taken on a religious character, and she takes her role very seriously. Blinded by her religious fervor, she is unable to conceive of an alternative for her people, such as, killing the damn thing. Let us now return to Zeya and examine its second great realm, the Kingdom of Varlamore. From its enormous capital of Civitas Ilafortis reigns Zani Arkan, sometimes known as the Sun Queen. Her history is mostly unknown to us, but unlike many rulers we've seen, she is undoubtedly an incredible fighter, as it is said she had already become a champion of the Fortis Coliseum as a young princess, an impressive achievement. She married Servius, the Theokan of Ralos, meaning the high priest of the Church of Ralos, one of two gods in Varlamore's main religion of Lozanium. They had a son together, their heir Prince Itzla Arkan. Alas, centuries of Varlamore isolationism means we only have scraps of information about its leadership. This enigma extends west of the capital and below the mountain known as Ralos's Rise, home to the independent underground city-state of Kamtorum, last bastion of the Imkondo dwarves on Gielinor. That said, it seems the dwarves here have adopted their own identity, referring to themselves simply as the dwarves of Kamtorum rather than Imkondo dwarves. As for their leader, all we have to go on is a name, High Lord Katlo. Lastly, our final realm, often known as the Lost City, is Zanaris, Gielinor's moon. Did you guys know Zanaris was the moon? I didn't know until recently, and I feel like I should have. Anyway, it is home to the fairy race, whose ruler is the creatively named Fairy Queen. As of late, the queen has been weakening due to an unknown sickness, and a rather suspicious one if you ask me. While she is described as benevolent, there are shady characters in her entourage that lust for her power and wouldn't be above employing underhanded methods to acquire it. And that leaves us with nothing. We did it. We learned a little bit about every ruler in their domain. If there's a place whose ruler wasn't listed, that means either it's part of a bigger realm and doesn't have its own, we don't know who it is, or I missed something in my research. After all, I am great, but not perfect. Thank you so much for being along for the ride, and if you liked it, please consider tossing the channel a coin by liking, commenting, and/or sharing the video. There is no better way to help out and show your support. If this one took longer than usual to come out, that's for a few reasons. Obviously there's the length, but also the fact that I've been on vacation for a few weeks in Victoria, British Columbia, which is now pretty much my favorite place, and also why this postscript sounds so much different than the rest, cause my audio setup is a bit different. So yeah, I haven't been working on this video as much as I anticipated. Instead, I've been out and about on adventures, here's some photos of that, and doing a super minute 3D puzzle of a Great War era German warplane for some reason. That thing looks dope though. Anyway, fascinating life stories aside, as always your time and support is greatly appreciated, especially if you made it this far. And if you're actually interested in that kind of random stuff, let me know, because I've been toying with the idea of making another more personal channel for ranting about interesting stuff that isn't related to OSRS. But anyway, it's getting late and I'm actually getting married tomorrow. Thankfully not to a woman like Queen Ella Maria. So have the best weekend, I know I will. And peace. That's it for me.